Alright, so back again to do another video on the dishonesty of the gun control movement. Episode 3, the meaning of the Second Amendment. Now, a guy on Twitter today posted a tweet that just put me in the mood to do another video. He said something along the lines of, we only are looking at one half of the Second Amendment, us Second Amendment advocates. So let's look at the Second Amendment itself and see what it says, because this is a big time lie of the gun control movement, is to misinterpret the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. So the gun control advocates will take this first part and then use it and say the second part doesn't exist. They don't even know what the first part means, by the way. All they see is this term regulated here. They don't take into account what it meant in the time of our founding fathers, nor do they take into account what the actual sentence is saying in of itself. They just say that, they just take this one word and say, well, that means heavy gun control. No, it doesn't. Basically, I'm going to read this first part of the line, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. This simply means a well-functioning militia is necessary to the security of a free state. In those times, regulated meant properly functioning, working as it shall be. It was not associated with heavy government regulation. It just meant preparedness and functionality. A militia is a body of citizens. In those days, a militia meant it was just a citizen's army, pretty much. Peasants, farmers, and on the weekends, maybe they're a militia, or only in times when their land is under attack. It didn't imply soldiers, and in fact our National Guard today would be considered a regular army. Now, the part they like to ignore, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It says the right of the people, not the right of the militia, not the right of the government, to keep and bear arms, to own and carry arms, shall not be infringed. Now, what does shall not be infringed mean? It means shall not be abridged, shall not be prohibited, shall not be restricted. And that's simply what it means. Now, a few things you have to ignore to take the gun control advocates' definition of the Second Amendment. First, you have to ignore the second line altogether. You have to especially ignore the right of the people part. You have to ignore what the original definition of regulated and militia was at the time that the Second Amendment was written. And you have to ignore the fact that it's in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. All were restrictions on either the federal government or the federal government and the state governments. So that is those are a few of the things you have to ignore. And if you're living in a post-2008 world, you have to ignore the fact that the Supreme Court ruled it as an individual right. Well, and it's actually not, the Second Amendment itself is not the right. It protects a pre-existing right. So there's a lot of stuff you have to ignore. If you really want to get into it, you'd have to ignore all the writings of our founding fathers, such as the Federalist Papers, too. But again, I don't think this is an honest mistake by the gun control advocates to misinterpret this. Well, yeah, there are a lot of them that are kind of not all there, so I can see how some of them might not have the mental capacity to understand this. But for the rest of them, I do believe they are blatantly being dishonest with this. And this, my friends, is one of the many reasons why the gun control advocates have lost all their credibility with me. You can't even be honest about one constitutional amendment. You know, one clearly worded constitutional amendment at that.